think that we're doomed, frankly. I'll use it. Like, I think we're doomed if we can't get there.
It's what you were just talking about, right? The business versus the personal. Yeah. It is personal.
It is personal, but I also think it's generational, right? Like, people that are in the Gen X generation or the millennial generation want a relationship. They don't want a transaction. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Exit Is Now podcast with me, your host, Scott Snider. We are back with another Flip the Script episode. So our Flip the Script episodes, I think, are really unique. So last year, if you tuned in to last season, we did Flip the Script episodes, but we did them with our internal team here at the Exit Planning Institute. So we did it with middle management and executives that have helped build the EPI community and build the EPI organization into the company that it is today. Given you all seem to really like the Flip the Script episodes, this season we decided to bring in outside people that had a deep impact on who we are as an organization and how we operate. So I'd like to welcome all the way from Denver, Colorado, driving here to Cleveland, my friend Joe from Better Practice. And what I love about Better Practice, if you just look at your little LinkedIn page, it really hits. It's such a simple thing, but it really hits home for me. I wrote it down before I came here. It said, better teams, better results. And we were trying to think about this in kind of pre-show. It had to be late 2020, early 2021. And for a lot of our followers, Joe, on our show, and a lot of our listeners, they've heard our story, right? We not only did we pivot an organization from a product or service standpoint, but I think even more impactful, we pivoted who we were. And it was because of, because of what you did for us that allowed us to make better decisions, communicate better, come together as a team, understand each other better. And what we hear a lot today, flash forward 5 years, we talk a lot today about business being personal, is that not only from the X's and O's standpoint, it's 80% of my wealth, but if I'm having a crappy day at home and I come into the office, people are going to know. And if I'm having a crappy day in the office and I go home, people will know into home too. And so what you did through your offerings is really allow us to come together as a team and do what you say, better teams and have better results. And here we are today, more than double the size when we first met you. Isn't that wild?
That's crazy.
So anyways, welcome, Joe. Why don't you kind of tell us about kind of what I led into in your own way, right? And talk to you about maybe the service, the product, and what you do for companies to kind of set the frame.
Yeah, so really it's all about helping people figure out what matters together, make good decisions quickly, and act with some semblance of grace and accountability, which I think you guys have modeled pretty well over the years. And it's been interesting to see how it's grown and how it's evolved over time. I was actually talking to Sam out there before this started, and I said, so what's a question I should really ask Scott? I was going to get right to the, she nailed it. So I'm going to give it to you right out of the gate here.
Okay,
ready for this?
Sure.
And we're going to combine some EOS stuff too, because I think that's important for what you guys are doing. So you've built a system, your own system, in my view, where EOS gives some structure, better practice, supports good decisions and behavior, and Berkman adds that deep self-awareness. What do you think that trifecta reveals that other orgs often miss?
Oh, yeah, he's going to hit me hard. See, this is why I invited Joe in here. So, I think there's a deep people component in what you've done for us, right? It's like you were the person that introduced these like mashups.
Mashups.
I just thought it was a unique way, and I don't honestly think for the business owners or leaders that are sitting out there, it's such a simple concept, but something that to me, I never thought about before, Joe, where you said, look, now that we know each other better, and now we have a common framework that we can communicate in, now let's hang out and let's look at data about each other, profiles, and so that we could work better together, knowing that we probably all aren't alike, and knowing that we probably all have some disagreements, but we need to come together to really thrust this business forward to create more significant results in our companies. And the thing that really stands out about the trifecta, or what you called it, is that I got to know my teammates better. And in a smaller organization, that was impactful. I actually think it's even more important now that we're like reaching our 50th employee at EPI, that the managers allow. They're just able to know each other more. I mean, you saw us back then, Joe. We were kind of a group of friends, right? Where like most of the people I was hiring when I met you originally were quite literally my friends, and they were all just passionate, kind of entrepreneurs in their own right that wanted to grow a cool company. But now hitting 50 employees, like you don't know everybody, but you need to in order to really have something impactful. So that's what I think of when you ask that question to me.
So now we're going to look back in time.
Okay.
If you could look back to the time before EOS, before Better Practice, and whisper something to yourself as a leader, what would it be?
I would say the first thing, and so if you watch the show, I'm kind of off the cuff. First one that honestly that pops into my mind is empathy. I just think that I was kind of a drill sergeant back in the day, and I think with like an operating system like EOS, and like what do you call Better Practice? Because it's not quite. It's like describe it.
We call it a framework. So
it's
a set of guiding principles.
Guiding principles is a good way to think about it. Yep.
A couple of simple concepts, and a dancing goat. You got the story of the dancing goat. That whole be curious, suspend judgment, that sort of thing, which really creates a mindset that allows people to have empathy with each other, kind of look through different lenses, see things from different perspectives.
And it's the dancing goat that I didn't have before, right? I think that I was way more of a drill sergeant. We just kind of spoke as we opened the show. I thought like you leave your personal stuff at the door, and it was really just like X's and O's about the numbers and about getting the job done. More militant, really, in my style of leadership, and just not as impactful, right? Like I don't know. I think we had a nice company, but if these people back then weren't also my friends, I think they eventually would have left, right? There's no way I would have been able to scale without learning more about people and people that, frankly, are highly intelligent folks, right? It's not like my old days of like me and the boys out there mowing lawns, right? Like we got multiple personalities, multiple education levels, but empathy really comes to mind for me.
So you've learned about other people. What have you learned about yourself?
Man, what have I learned about myself? So I think in this journey, and it's a combined journey, to your point, I like that you do reference like other stuff because it's really about the blend of what you created, what Gina Wickman created at EOS, what Fred Johnson and Tracy Johnson created at Initiative One, and that blend of everything that really kicked us into gear. But what I found is purpose. I think, when I remember you did that power session too. You did a power session, right? I did. And so I did a power session at the summit, and mine was all about finding purpose. And in my research for that I found through like the American Medical Institution or something like that 72% of Americans walk through their entire life with no sense of meaning or purpose. And that was totally me. And you think I would have learned the first time when I like sold my company? And in 2010, I kind of like walked aimlessly trying to figure out who I was and what I wanted to be, right? I talked the story about one of my first exit planning lessons was don't let your business define you. My dad said, don't fall in love with that business, fall in love with business like you're an entrepreneur. But for me, I think what everything combined together allowed me to do is really find what I'm most passionate or my purpose in life, which I think is really to create unique experiences for others. And I think that's what we do every day at EPI. And I think that's, if you know me personally, that's what I try to do in life. But I think having some impactful experiences for others is something that I really look forward to doing. And with all frameworks combined as one, it allowed me to really fall in and venture into that. But you have to be really good at, like, you have to find yourself by talking to people too. Like, who am I to you?
Oh, for sure. Bounce things off of people.
Yeah,
right?
You have to be able to communicate and talk. And I think, again, going back to your framework, it allows you to have, like, make an awkward conversation a lot more, like, normal in a very framed way. It's like a very unique experience.
Love it. Love it. So you've built something that's got reach, it's got rigor. Underneath all that, what's the question you're still sitting with as a leader?
Oh, man, this guy's, whoo, man, what a...
We can't give you softballs.
Yeah, Joe's coming in not giving softballs. But I would say, again, first thing that pops in my mind as a leader, particularly in a space that talks a lot about, like, generations and exit planning, It is, what is my legacy? Like, what is that going to be as a leader in our space, or like I'd like to think a leader in our space? Where are we going next? And we're celebrating this year the 20th anniversary of the Exit Planning Institute.
Wow.
Yeah, right. Isn't that crazy?
Congratulations.
Like, yeah, thanks. Like Peter Chrisman and Rich Jackman started it in 2005. Dad and I bought it in 2012. And I think one of the things when you ask me that question that pops, and maybe it's because it's just the 20th anniversary, so it's a very reflective year. What are me and the EPI team going to leave in this profession? Like Pete and Rich came up with the three-legged stool concept, right? We definitely wouldn't all be here without Pete and Rich saying, I think there's something missing. They asked the question, am I truly meeting all of my clients' objectives? And once they answered that, they were able to put together some concepts that they started to teach. And then Dad became a SEPA, and he brought in the value acceleration methodology. So he became, I think, the biggest critique back then in 2008 when Dad became a SEPA was, we're learning all these concepts, but we don't know how to apply them. Dad brought application. And I think our legacy is going to be something around, we're going to finally take this to business owners, and we're going to marry highly educated owners with highly educated advisors along the way. I think that's where we're probably heading. But when I think about like my impact or leadership, it's kind of what's the next 20 look like, and how can we help our advisors and owners get there?
So where do you think most of your personal growth is going to be over the next 5-10 years?
I think that it is, we were just talking about this the other day because we've had an opportunity now to look out. You'll think this is crazy for someone that's known us and seen us kind of grow up a little bit. We're looking at a model that by December 31st of 2028, it gets us to 100 people. So I think I'm going to have to be, it's the traditional decentralizing. So how can I train others in areas that, right? It's pushing decisions out. How can I train others to make highly educated decisions and feel comfortable in doing them? How can I empower them to do it so I'm not always just kind of riding their ass when they're making the bad decision that I'm, or going about it in the way I wouldn't, but they still get perhaps a better result.
For sure.
And just kind of letting go. What I've realized since meeting you is the culture that we created wasn't a culture that I said it was and I pushed it out. When we met you, we quite literally ripped off the core values, and they're probably somewhere around this office. There's like quite literally a plaque on the wall. We ripped those off because they were meaningless. We didn't really visit them. And over the course of learning through you and other mentors that we've had, we replaced those core values. But what I realized is that it was a business that wasn't really built around the Snider way necessarily. It was built around the EPI way, which embraced a Snider perspective.
Of course.
But it was Joe's perspective. It was Sam's perspective. It was Donovan's. It was Paige's, Jocelyn's, and all of that. And we built a company that was really built by the employees. And I think as we go from 50 to 100, and what I need to kind of continue to learn and embrace is, how do I make it about a place where others want to come work, not just where I want to come work? And how do you then keep some of the core principles like your program, which now for our audience, we've actually embraced it as a core part of our onboarding. Everybody gets your program when they come in because it's just become a foundation of who we are. You know, how do I continue to evolve that culture? That's probably what I'm most scared of, Joe, is from employee number like 46 or whatever we're at now to employee number 100. How does that person believe in the same things? Like, are they still embracing your way, the way of Initiative One, the way of the value acceleration methodology in the same ways? It's like it's not a pain point. It's like one of my fears, right? As an owner. And one of my desires to make sure that stays, as there's some core parts of our foundation that I think make us really successful, stays from 46 to 100.
That gets me thinking about like this idea of pushing decisions out, right? Getting good decisions made as close to the point of performance as you possibly can, as opposed to having things escalate where leaders got to make a decision and the decisions get pushed back down. Mm-hmm. What kind of experience have you guys had with, say, having Paige actually support an idea that is really a priority for sales or this cross stuff, right? I mean, it's amazing. Yeah. A lot of organizations, they work so hard inside of their function to perfect what their part of the company does. Yeah. And I've already heard, in fact, just the conversations before this started, your team is thinking about the business as a whole. They're willing to help you make good trade-offs, even if it's not their personal or their functions first priority. I think that's got to be part of what you're trying to do, right?
It absolutely is. And one of the I just wrote down is when you were talking about that is that's the value creator mindset, right? I think that is what we look at inside of the value acceleration methodology. I love this is why I think it's so cool having outsiders like you come into our business, spend some time here in Cleveland, interact with some of our folks, and able to sit here and have a podcast conversation because you just nailed it, man. That we've been able to take, I think, what a traditional employee might think of is, I want a place that respects me. I want a place that I can have some independence. I want a fair and square salary, and that's good for me. We've been able to take that mentality and say, we're going to give you all of that, but we're also going to give you this value creator mindset where somebody like Sam can sit there and share unbelievable ideas and systems and approach with their counterparts on the sales side, and it's as respected, right? I always feel like in businesses you have the sales and marketing, like, right?
Classic,
right? You've seen tons of companies. It's a classic. My dad always talks about just friction, where quite literally today, this afternoon, Sam presented in front of the entire business development team of some pretty hardcore salespeople, and she presented a whole system for giving them better data.
I heard
right?
about that.
Yeah, see,
That's
isn't that crazy?
Fantastic idea.
And then she gained the respect of everybody on that team, while I think actually probably learning something as well. And I don't know, she's sitting outside of the studio right now. We might have to ask her when we get out that it had to be a little intimidating because she is kind of introverted as well, right? Being a creative marketer, she's definitely not the big, bold business development personality so it had to be a kind of a weird thing. But my point being is that kind of cross communication with teams is a signal that you are of a value creator mindset, and you're rising not just the marketing department, but you're doing this kind of work so that it rises the organization. And at the end of the day, I think really raises up the certified exit planning advisor too. It makes a better community that's more noticeable, and does impactful work. So I think that is absolutely right, is that you're looking at what we've been training for years, right? It's this value creator mindset.
Yeah, they're thinking like business owners, right?
They are thinking like business owners,
These are employees that are
They
thinking like business owners. What's better than that?
I mean, for me, there's nothing better than it, right? Because I'm a purebred business owner, I'd like to think. And so being able to hang out with Sam or Donovan is like hanging out with fellow owners, is that though they might not technically own anything, I do respect them as peers because their ideas are not like just income generators. They're long-term ideas, even in a small way. They're creating not just a great company, but a valuable company long-term. And so it is something special.
So you had mentioned earlier that some of the values that were on the walls got taken down and evolved into different things. And I remember some of those first ones were very much about excellence. It's like it was this drive for things need to be just right. So what's harder, standardizing excellence or keeping soul in the system?
Man, dude, this is so these are great questions. So standardizing excellence or being sold
or keeping soul in the system.
Keeping soul in the system. I think it has to be the second, right? It has to be keeping soul in the system, because I think if you have soul in the system, the way at least I'm thinking about it, you will always kind of drive towards excellence. And for me, you've heard me talk about this before, we call excellence at EPI like best-in-class practices, right? Like we always say that 1 to 6 scale that we rate these intangible capitals. And if you get a 5 out of 6, you're best in class. That's an excellent score. But I don't ever think excellence or best in class is a place that you kind of arrive at, right? So you almost have to kind of keep the soul in it, because we're always evolving and growing. Is that what
better?
Better. You see how he's like playing this into what he does, but it's so true. That's why I started with better teams, better results. And so going back to the example that you pulled up with or brought up with Sam, is that I mean, in my opinion, no doubt that the sales team is leaving that meeting this afternoon feeling better and feeling more empowered because of what they were taught. Not necessarily what they were given in the system that she built, but what they were taught by her in that hour and a half meeting that will go make them better salespeople. And so, but I would say to you, there's got to be some soul in that, right? It's not just Sam didn't go in there trying to achieve excellence, right? And neither did our business development people. They're just trying to get better every day and lead towards these big lofty goals that we as executives are setting for ourselves that everybody's buying into. So I think it's the soul, man, for
Fantastic.
sure.
Fantastic. Love it. So we'll shift gears here a little bit. Got to keep you moving.
Okay, cool.
What part of this work still lights you up, and what drains you the fastest?
I think this is one of the questions you ask in your training, no? In your interview? See, that's what I'm saying. I remember this.
Where did this
So
come
what's the first one again? Sorry, what was the first one?
What part of the work still lights you up?
Yep.
And what part drains you the fastest?
So lights me up, I would say, is kind of I've been able to, as we've decentralized myself, Joe, I've been able to spend more time with our members or our customers. And a great example of that was our 2025 Exit Planning Summit. And it was the first time that, we celebrated the 10th anniversary of the summit in the form that's in today, but we were around for a few years before that in a more traditional conference sense. So my point being is I've been manning and emceeing and managing this conference for a long time. They got me out of the management, Joe, like in 2022 when Jocelyn stepped in to kind of oversee the event. And then we got me out this year of emceeing event. So it was kind of weird. When I got up in the morning, I didn't have anywhere to be other than be a part of the summit. So I was able to shake hands, work with our partners. It was a really cool experience. And so when you ask me kind of what lights me up, it's hearing the stories. It's hearing some of the constructive feedback. It's hearing the stories of striving to be best in class, some of the struggles, some of the owner stories. Because remember, I'm an owner. So having boots on the ground, these advisors working with owners, you know how much insight I get into the owner's world?
Huge.
We can tweak content. So that kind of stuff lights me up. I love going to launch chapters. I love going to speak about value acceleration. I love telling my story about my life and value acceleration as an owner. So, and that's probably lit me up more than ever before because I've just been able to do it more. I love being an ambassador for our brand. And so, or frankly, our entire profession. What drains me? What drains me?
Can't all be rainbows and unicorns, right?
No, it's not. It's not. I would say, Joe, what really drains me is this is going to sound funny, so we could dive into it if you want, is having to be an EPI faculty member. I'll just say it. Is like, for me, I'm not, to be totally honest with you, and people that have watched the show, like I didn't graduate college. So when my dad said, Scott, we bought this business together, but now I want you to go run it because it's not being run the way I think it should be. And he's like, well, you own half of it. And I was like, yeah, I just wanted to own it. It's like an investment. He's like, no, as the majority partner now, I need you to go run it. And if I had to really challenge myself, I would look back and say it was probably because I was a little intimidated. We have highly educated people with law degrees and MBAs. And I was like, dude, I went to horticulture school. And I dropped out of that to run my company. And now, in today's world, our board of advisors, our thought leadership council, our head of faculty, which happens to be my dad, Chris, is saying, Scott, why don't you go teach more formally as an EPI faculty member? I just don't think it's my highest and best use. And I just don't know if it lights me up, right? It really kind of drains me. It's like I'm more casual like this. I think I'm good in here. I don't know if I'm good in like 2-hour formal suit and tie instruction. And I don't know if I'm qualified because again, I need my CEPAs. So I might be able to tell you how owners are integrating, but I need my own CEPAs to build a better company. And so I think the push to say who's taking over for dad as head of faculty, naturally it should be you. And I'm like, no, I like running the business. I like the visionary side of the business. I like the ambassador side of the business. Like, let me go teach on a main stage in a motivational keynote, not necessarily in the classroom. There's got to be better people for this. So that kind of drains me when it's very mentally draining for me when I have to stand on those stages.
Have you discussed this with Chris, or is he hearing about this for the first time watching the podcast?
He's listening to the show.
What?
He's listening to the show. Like, come on. I would say that it's probably honestly the first time that I probably have talked about it publicly in front of all of our audience. Internally at EPI, the executive team kind of knows I'm there. Dad knows I'm there. Dad has asked me like, well, why don't you just teach my modules? And he's like, you can. I was like, I know I can, but it's going to be from a different angle of how business owners are absorbing it, not the foundational way you want them to learn first. So he knows. And then this year, one of the big strategic initiatives that we have at EPI is that we formed the EPI Thought Leadership Council. So we had our first meeting back in April of this year. And these 6 individuals are SEPAs of all different kind of walks, ages, and professional backgrounds. And the training program for them over the next 2 years is to take over Dad's modules. So we re-record and evolve our SEPA program basically every 2 years. So we just released one this year. We'll release another one in 27, but we'll start creating it in the middle of 26. So the Thought Leadership Council knows it too. So we've started to build that framework around removing Dad from head of faculty long term and replacing them with award-winning, best-in-class SEPAs that I think know the technical side of the value acceleration methodology and hasn't just been like a user of it I've been. So
that's a great idea.
Pretty interesting.
Really good idea.
I mean, I think it makes it more about the community than it is about the Sniders, right? And if any SEPA's listening now, you probably would do so, right? The brand can't necessarily just be about one or two guys. It should really be a universal approach and methodology that people can teach of all across the SEPA community.
And that way you can tap people that actually love teaching, because
then there's a lot of, and they're frankly better than me. Like, you're a great teacher, we've learned a lot from you. And so I don't know, man. I don't know if I'm the right guy to go out and teach, but that would probably be something, I guess, that drains me.
Fair enough.
Sometimes.
Fair enough.
So before you go in, I have to kind of re-host here. We got to take a quick break.
Okay.
So we're going to take a quick break, come back, and we'll get into the second part of the show. Is that fair?
Right.
All right, cool. Stick with us, folks. We'll be right back.
Cornerstone Business Services are M&A advisors, bringing a highly successful, high-touch level of service of investment banking to the lower middle market. At Cornerstone, we don't just make deals. We craft personalized solutions with an expert team that has decades of experience in buy-side, sell-side valuation services. We understand the deeply emotional process of selling a founder or family-owned business, with first-time sellers who are likely embarking on what will become the largest financial transaction of their life. We're more than just investment bankers. Cornerstone is a trusted partner in helping business owners begin their next chapter. You only get one chance to sell your business. Cornerstone can help you finish strong.
Are you a business owner seeking to unlock the true potential of your enterprise? Look no further than the second edition of Christopher Snider's revolutionary book, Walking to Destiny: 11 Actions an Owner Must Take to Rapidly Grow Value and Unlock Wealth. In this updated edition, Snider presents proven strategies for maximizing your company's value and accelerating growth. Whether you're aiming to sell or simply want to ensure long-term success, this book offers a blueprint for building a thriving, self-sustaining business. Walking to Destiny isn't just another book, it's a game changer, backed by Snider's own experience as a successful business owner and as a SEPA. This book bridges the gap between business owners and advisors, guiding you towards financial freedom. But don't just take our word for it. Hear from those whose lives have been transformed by its insights. One satisfied reader raves, "The best guide for transitioning out of privately owned companies. I recommend it to all business owners and advisors." Another praises it on its focus for maximizing business value, calling it their, quote, principal tool for educating owners. Ready to take control of your business's destiny? Visit walkingtodestiny.com now and use code EXITISNOW to claim your free copy of Walking to Destiny: 11 Actions an Owner Must Take to Rapidly Grow Value and Unlock Wealth. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Make the moment perfect by seizing this opportunity today.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Exit Is Now podcast with me, your host, Scott Snider, hanging out with my buddy Joe, as I said before, traveling all the way in from Denver, Colorado by car, which I always think is fascinating. We're hanging out on a Flip the Script, though, so if you're just tuning in the Flip the Script episodes, we have people that have impacted me and our organization and our EPI community, and it's questions actually to me. Joe's kind of taken over the show, if you will, and I'm just like logistically bringing it back and forth. So I'm going to toss it back over to you for more conversation.
All right. So the answer to this one might be no, but I'm going to ask anyway. Was there ever a moment when you nearly turned back? And what did you learn about yourself in that moment?
Yeah, I would say, in short, I would say 2020 was obviously really tough. Like right before I met you, when it was probably the hardest part, right? So I had like a little bit of a poor personal romantic relationship going on in 2020. I had a business for 2 months that didn't produce any revenue.
Ouch.
And kept all the expenses, no revenue. And we had basically a 45 to 60 day period where we were pivoting our entire product. So you had like a triple whammy. And I would be lying. Yeah, I would if I didn't say. And there was a couple of late nights, where I was here in this office, or I would come home drained, and I was alone at home. Right, I was single, and you're kind of sitting there saying like, "Dude, I'm just gonna go get a friggin' job." Or like you had at least some cash in your bank account, and every month you would see it go down because there's nothing coming in during the pandemic, and you said, "Well, what if I just shut this whole thing down?" Take the cash that's in my account, split it between me and Dad, and just go do something else. And so, the whole pandemic, much like it was for many perhaps of our audience, it was just probably one of the most stressful times where, like you were just like, we could just shut this thing down now and just go get jobs or go find something else to do, like just turn back around.
So did you learn anything in that time about yourself?
I think we all found out how like truly gritty we were. And I think that we came out on the other side with a lot more meaning. Like I think that, we have this cool, it's kind of like your product and service, right? Like you actually change lives. Like you just don't sell me this cup. Like no offense, whoever created this cup, I need this cup.
We like cup builders.
Right? We like cup builders. And this is probably my favorite cup. For those of you that watch the show, I use this cup every show, hometown Cleveland. But this isn't life-changing by any means. I think the work that you do and the work that our certified exit planning advisors do quite literally changes lives. And so when we pivoted that program and put it online and people were able to start coming and getting involved and learning more, we had like a lot of thank yous, like just quick emails. Like, man, I needed that. Like given the pandemic too, I needed some fresh education that was motivational. Thank you for that. Or 6, 7, 8 months passed, and like, Scott, I just landed my first exit planning engagement because I engaged an owner in a different way. Like, thank you. And I wasn't getting that even cutting lawns or planting trees. Like, at least that was it wasn't inspirational, but at least you look good.
Right.
But it was just, I realized when we brought back the program how appreciative everybody was, not because just it was a quality program, but it was something that people needed. And I was like, man, we're really doing some meaningful work here. I think we really need to make a big run at making this the first or second largest credential in the market so that we can truly impact lives. And we've been on that path, brother, ever since. And
I wonder how many businesses think that their purpose is to make money. When if that's what it is, in 2020, you'd have been having a hard spot.
Well, I mean, you might, to your point, I guess I never thought about it like that, right? If my purpose or the business was to make money, well, then we would have just shut it down.
Right.
It would have been an easy decision. Where you're like, well, quite literally, no revenue, all the expenses. We decided to keep our employees at the time because we were like, look, we don't want to lay people off. We took that PPP that had helped us kind of float us through, thinking that if we could get through this, we wanted to staff that, like the team that could propel growth again, and we didn't have to want to rehire a bunch of people. But it's a tough decision, man, when you're sitting around. Every night I would talk to my dad, and every 3 days, so twice a week, basically, I would go to my dad's home, or Dad would come into the office so that we could talk about how things were going. And there were many times where either Dad saw me, because Dad let me pivot the business, right? He goes, let me know what you need and just make it happen. And I said, and he would just see it on my face. And I think there's a part of the father-son relationship where you're looking at your son, not your business partner, where you're like, I don't want to put him through this anymore. And there's many nights where Dad and I were just like, do we close the company, take the money, and go do something else, or at least start providing for our families? I had given up my paycheck for 3 months too, split it amongst some employees that needed it. So I wasn't making any money.
Did they know that?
I don't know. Maybe I think I've told that story once here, but it was just, we had the because we had the PPP, but some employees just needed a bump because their significant other got totally laid off or lost their job completely. And I was like, well, I'll just take this as a float for now. I think I meant it as a loan at this point, and then we just kind of started to flow through. But yeah, I would say that those were kind of pivotal moments where I really appreciate that I didn't walk backwards, and I said, let's go forwards. But that's a really interesting question. I think we all have those in our career,
Yeah,
For sure.
I would think so.
Yeah.
I would think so.
Yeah.
So you've mentioned your dad. You've mentioned him a few times, and obviously he's got a pretty important part in both EPI and in your life.
Yeah.
My son works for me too. He's our product owner.
Has he always been there? Is that new?
8 years.
8 years? Okay.
8 years,
cool.
yeah. And it's been one of the most gratifying experiences.
How old's your son?
25 now.
Okay, cool.
24. It'll be 25
Okay.
in December.
All right.
I'm going to get in trouble if he watches this. So how has your relationship with your dad changed?
Yeah, man, this is always a really cool question. So Amy Wirtz, who's one of our family business advisors, she was the Exit Planner of the Year in 2024, taught me this. So if Amy's listening right now, I'm not taking this from you. It was actually inspirational. She said, Scott, you're kind of more like generation 1.5, meaning that you're not quite 2 because you're not like a second generation is kind of inheriting something and taking it to the next level. Like you and Dad created this together, really. Right. And you had 2 different, like I was out executing and Dad's like the idea guy, right? He's the guy that I always say we kind of help my dad monetize his intellectual property. Like I didn't create the value acceleration methodology by any means, but I'd like to think I helped commercialize it. And so we really truly needed each other. And so when you asked me that question, I mentioned that because I think it has impacted our relationship because I have many friends that are in business with their dads. And I think from Gen 2, the biggest complaint is like I don't get enough respect from my father as a business person. Like I'm junior. And, I have to work my way up from shop floor sweeper to plant manager. And then all of a sudden, hey, you're the vice president of the company. And they're like, Dad, you taught me how to make the nut and bolt, but you didn't really teach me how to run a business. And so they start to struggle with the business side as their dad has kind of left. And so it creates this tension because they're also probably not communicating well. They don't have a framework. But nonetheless, I think that having some skin in the game from day one has helped me and my dad manage a father-son relationship, a CEO-president relationship, and a business partner relationship as well. And I think it's, again, going back to programs, frameworks like yours, you probably realize it because you work with so many people, that you actually just make better people. Like I am a better son because I went through your stuff. Because I don't mean to give you the goosebumps, man. But and I said this about Fred as well, where these programs that make you you hire these folks like you to make you better business people, and you pop out on the other end. You're like, well, shoot, I could just use that to be a better husband. Like I could just use that to be a brother, a son, a friend, and it gives you a different style of communication. And so I've taken that over the last 5 years with Dad and combined it with value acceleration and Tom Dean's 12 family blueprint questions. And it's just allowed us to communicate better. So I actually think Dad and I kind of, pandemic again, right, really beat our relationship up. I think we've actually spun out better than we've ever had, both from a father-son relationship and from a business partner relationship, because we have better communication framework.
And you mentioned like 3 different relationships you have with your dad. Do you manage them as 3 separate relationships?
I think you have to, for me. Honestly, for me, you just have to, right? Like my mom, if you've ever met her, she is like product of like a blue-collar family, about as like wholesome Midwestern Polish lady as you can be, right? I love my mom, and most people that know my mom love her deeply, right? And she really wants nothing to do with the business. Like she likes all the cool perks, but she's like, when you and Dad get together and we're over here just trying to even have a family Sunday dinner, stop talking about business. And I think the pressure for the management of that isn't on Mom. It's really on me and Dad. And so for me, I try to I do try to manage. I'm not a different person per se in the situations. I'm just saying like in this situation, like I just took my dad to Phoenix, Arizona to play golf, go to a NASCAR race.
Different channel, right?
Well, I'm just saying, like, Dad, I just want to hang out with you, man. Like,
Right.
I don't want to talk about business on the golf course. I just want to hang out. Let's talk about how the lake house is going, or let's talk about what it's like being a grandpa. Like, let's just chat. And then there's times, or like, dude, I need you as a dad right now, so I need your advice. I don't need you as businessman, Dad. I just need Dad. And I do think you got to kind of turn it on and off or manage the scenarios. And I think that's one of the reasons Dad and I have an effective relationship, because we've spent time practicing those different scenarios and turning them, maybe not on and off as the wrong phrase, but being able to manage kind of what setting you're in. Because I just feel like if you're going to go golfing and do an NASCAR race with your father for 4 days in Phoenix, talk about business the entire time, you're really not detoxing, right? You're kind of like, dude, you're sounding like you're more like my CEO right now.
So did you pull it off? Did you manage to get through the whole thing without talking business?
No, I think we may have talked one time over dinner, right? So like over a dinner and a bourbon, right? Dad was like, so where do you think we're going to go with these? So it was more of like a visionary conversation. Yeah. It wasn't the nuts and bolts or X's and O's, but I don't think we were perfect by any means. I'm sure it came up, for sure.
Okay, I got a couple rapid fire questions for you.
Okay,
you ready?
Cool. Yep.
Best decision you've made in the last 12 months?
Getting married to my wife, Joy.
Oh, love that one. One piece of advice you no longer give?
Oh, man. Oh, man, dude.
Did I stump you?
No, I would say I would go back to what I said at the top of the show. Business is personal. Every day, I think it's very personal. And so I think I was one of the believers that you leave your personal stuff at the door. But business is very personal. And once you realize that, you actually create better cultures and attract better people.
Last question.
Okay.
Sitting down?
Yeah, trying to sit up straight a little bit.
What do you want the next generation of SEPAs to do differently than the last?
I want them to be much more relationship-oriented and less transaction-oriented.
Ooh.
I think that we're doomed, frankly. I'll use it. Like, I think we're doomed if we can't get there.
It's what you were just talking about, right? The business versus the personal.
Yeah.
It is personal.
It is personal, but I also think it's generational, right? Like people that are in the Gen X generation or the millennial generation want a relationship. They don't want a transaction. You look, not to get super statistical, but like if you look at the State of Owner Readiness Survey, that's why I think our friends that are CPAs have dropped out of the top 5 most trusted advisor, because it's a transaction. It's an hourly rate. It's, I can't really spend that time with you. Whereas somebody like a financial advisor has popped to the top because they're about long-term relationship and they're the long view, because they have to be, right? Because they're trying to harvest that asset. But doesn't mean they're lingering. They're actually spending time with you. They're meeting your family. They're educating you on what exit strategy is. They're introducing you to different advisors. And it's kind of like very simple. You always remember the guy that bought you the dinner, right? It's kind of like you spent the time, you bought me the dinner, and you've been around. And so I think that SEPAs in short form can be a lot more focused on building relationships and a lot less focused on the transaction. The money will come if you just build the relationship. And I think it's needed for owners of the future.
Well, speaking of relationships, I am so glad you invited me to come down. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, man. I was glad to have you back when Sam had asked me to think about the next round of people that have made impact on me and our company. I hope that you get to spend some time with EPI so you can see the impact that you made while you're here. So I appreciate it.
I'm planning on it.
All right. Well, I think that concludes the show. Ready? All right. So next show is July 23rd. So thank you, everybody, for listening. And please subscribe, listen, and leave a review on all of your podcast platforms. We'll see you next time on July 23rd. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Joe.